Whether you're a beginner or you've been playing pickleball for a while, everyone can find ways to improve. In today's video, we're going to show you how to become a return master, keep your opponents on their toes. We'll cover everything from footwork to placement, so you can improve your returns and take control of the point. We're excited to bring these tips to you today that we really think are going to level up your game.
My name's Elisha.
I'm Justin.
Let's get into it. So we're coming to you with a simple stance and position on the return of serve. When we're talking about return of serve, we're talking about where you generally should stand. There's always the change that you can make based on your opponent. So if they're hitting shorter serves, sometimes it's okay to stay on that baseline. But generally when we're talking, we want to be as far, maybe like 5 or so feet behind the baseline, a wider stance with our feet, wider than our shoulders, slight bend in the knees, and we're on the balls of our feet so that our heels are up, so we're ready to move forward, we're maybe ready to move right or left to return the serve. It's always easier to move forward than it is to move back, so you want that room so that we can always move forward into our shot and approach the kitchen line.
Just a little side note, really have to focus on anticipation. So if your opponent is hitting more balls short, sometimes they're hitting more down the middle, or they're hitting out wide, really notice these patterns, because that's going to allow you to get to those balls easier. So now that we have some of the basics for the return out of the way, let's get into the next step. So again, we're maybe a little bit behind the baseline. This next thing we want to focus on is getting into the kitchen line, so towards the net. Now when we're hitting a return, we want to focus on where our movement is. As I mentioned, into the net, we're moving forward. If I hit that return and I'm moving backwards, not only is I'm gonna lose pace on the ball, but now I'm also losing time, because I've got to go back and then forward versus moving forward as I'm hitting it. So we want to get our momentum going forward. And the other thing we want to do as we're hitting this return is give ourselves high margin over the net. We want to hit this ball slower. People oftentimes think, I want to hit a really hard return to maybe get on offense. But really what happens is, if you hit a slower return, it gives you more time to get into the net, get to that kitchen line, and now you're ready to hit that third shot, or that ball from your opponent out of the air. Versus, if I hit this really fast, now what happens is they're already hitting a return as I'm in the middle of the court here, and I'm caught maybe at my feet. I'm not ready to get on the offense. So these two things, make sure you're moving forward and you're also hitting the ball so that it's got good margin over the net. Slower gives you time to go in. With new paddles coming out all the time, we've been play testing both the power and the spin of all kinds of paddles. We've got the results on our website if you want to compare when you're making a purchase. We also have discounts on there as well.
So we just talked about in the last tip about giving ourselves more time by hitting higher over the net and slower. In this next tip, we're talking about placement. So with that same logic, with me wanting to give myself more time to get to that kitchen line, I'm going to want to place the ball deeper. Because of the 2 bounce rule, that they have to let that ball bounce, if I hit it deeper, that's more time with the ball in the air, which gives me more time to get to the kitchen line. So placement wise, no matter where I go, I want to make sure I'm getting it 3 feet, 4 feet inside that baseline, so there's so much more time with that ball in the air than if I hit to the middle of the court and they can already be hitting it right there. So that's the first thing when it comes to placement. The second thing I'm thinking about is making sure that I'm hitting it to the weaker player that can't make a drop, right? If they have a tough time making a drop, they're hitting it too far and then we can crush it, or they're hitting in the net, I'm gonna try to more hit towards that player, whether they're down the line or whether they're cross court. If they're equal when it comes to their drops and their drives, I like to go cross court because it gives me more time again to get to the kitchen line, and it's a higher percentage chance it's gonna go in because I'm going over the lower part of the net and the greater distance. Now, before I get to this extra tip for advanced players, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. So this last tip when it comes to the advanced players is the shake and bake and trying to making sure we're avoiding that for our opponents. So what and when we're talking about advanced players, both of them can make drops, both of them can hit those good drives. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I know which one can be the most aggressive player. If I find that person out, I want to make sure I go to them so I keep them off the kitchen line. So I'm aiming for the return to the most aggressive player, or maybe even the better player, so that it keeps them away from the kitchen line. They have their weaker player come to the kitchen line, and that way we don't get attacked as much. And this is more for those advanced players. Again, if we're playing at a 3-0 or 4-0 level, and I see someone that can't even make a drop or make a drive, I want to go to them, not the stronger player. But again, at an advanced level, if both of them can make drops all day, we run into trouble when we hit to the weaker player, because they can still make that drop, and now they have their strong player at the net ready to pounce on us. So keep the better player back, allow the worst player to come up to the kitchen, and that way they can't kill you with a hard shot.
All right, so we've talked about giving ourselves time by hitting it higher. We've talked about moving in. Now we want to talk about the type of spin that gives us more time. So you probably hit, or you see the pros hit, slice on their return. So I want to talk a little bit about that. When we hit slice on our return, that gives us more time because the ball's floating in the air. Now I do want to say, we don't want to cut too much at the ball. I see a lot of people cutting at it too much, and the timing, the contact on the ball with your paddle is tougher when you hit these chops. And I specifically see a lot of people give away free points, which we absolutely don't want to do. One of the quickest ways to lose in pickleball is missing returns, giving them free points on their service side. So I like to think of, with the return, hit it a little bit flatter, so you're still thinking of slice, the paddle's open, but you're taking a shorter backswing and you're pushing through with that paddle open. You're not chopping at it, but it's really easy to time your return if you're just right here and you're just pushing it high and deep. So most of the time you're going to be hitting this, call it an in-between, a flatter slice shot, but there is an exception to this rule. If your opponent hits you a softer, shorter ball, that's when you can step up and hit topspin, because you're not worried, as we mentioned in the tip earlier, if you hit it hard from back here, now it's tough to get up to that kitchen line. But if you hit it hard from here, now you're on the aggressive, you've got your opponents back in the corner, and you're still able to get to that kitchen line okay. Because we know everyone's playing a ton of pickleball and wearing through their shoes way too fast. If you do need shoes, be sure to check out Frometh. There's a 10% discount in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to Engage for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the link in the description if you want 20% off any Engage paddle.